This is George Dionne of the Rock is George podcast, and this is a KNAC.com exclusive interview with vocalist Giles Lavery of the Australian traditional metal act Dragonsclaw. If I knew absolutely nothing about Dragonsclaw, how would you describe the band's music to me?
Traditional heavy metal. Our first couple of records certainly leaned in a power metal direction. But this third one, this new one, we have elements of that still, but this is traditional heavy metal in its purest form. If you think Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, that kind of stuff. That's exactly where this is coming from, this record. Fifth Angel, second Fifth Angel album in particular, Virgin Steel, Man of War. That's what this is all about.
Now, Dragonsclaw is one of your first bands dating back to 2010-ish. Tell me a little bit about how the band originally formed.
Well, I'd sung in a number of bands back in New Zealand. I couldn't really get anything going. I moved to Australia, in the early 2000s, actually in 2000, year 2000. And and I'd sung with various projects, over the years, but I think it was at 2010, I was introduced via a mutual friend to a guitar player called Ben Thomas, who was looking for a singer for a traditional metal project. That was Dragon's Claw. We were just clicked instantly as writers. We were coming up with, pretty much a couple of nights a week, at least every Sunday night, I would go around to Ben's place, and in a room in his house, he had a fairly modest studio setup, and we wrote, demoed, recorded, and completed the very first album, which was called Prophecy. And as soon as we finished, we floated a few demos out there on the internet, and within 3 weeks had a deal with a Greek label called and Steel, who released the album Prophecy. Um, Bill Tsamis from Warlord also heard one of these demos, and he got in touch with me, and that's actually how I ended up singing for Warlord, because he heard Dragonsclaw. So Dragonsclaw has a significant history in my career as a singer, my life as a singer, and we did an album Prophecy, and I think it came out in 2011. It might have come out in 2010. I can't remember. I'll have to check. I think it might have been 2011. And then in 2013, we put out a second one, Judgment Day. And then I got really busy. I moved to Germany. I started managing bands and artists, and have formed what has become a fairly successful management company managing international artists. I look after bands like Girls' School and Raven, Onslaught, and a number of others. So that is something that kept me incredibly busy for a number of years. Warlord also, reactivated a few years ago, and we've been touring and recording. I've recorded with JACK STARR, his last album, and been pretty damn busy with Alcatrazz, touring the last couple of years. And finally, I took 3 weeks off before Christmas last year, or over Christmas, and I just thought, man, I haven't had a break in like a decade. I'm taking 3 weeks off. I don't care if, like, unless someone's like gushing blood or on fire, I don't want a phone call. I told everyone that. Within 4 days, I was bored. I was like, ugh, what do I do? Like, I'm like, I'm bored. So I thought, I pulled out me and Ben, the guitar player, and it's totally my fault for holding this third record up. You know, I we'd sort of touched on it every sort of so often. Let's finish this up. Let's finish this up. Let's finish writing these notes. And, we'd always sort of inch along a little bit closer, then I'd get busy and stop. And I pulled out the demos because I was utterly bored out of my brain after 4 days, because people say I'm a workaholic. But anyway, I listened to them and I went, we've got to finish this. This stuff is turning out really good from the point where we'd last touched it, you know. So I contacted my friend Thomas Megler and I said, would you like, who's done some mixing for Warlord? I said, would you like to mix this record? And he heard the demos and said, absolutely. So I went, right, we found someone to mix it. I said, Ben, let's finish this up. And he was totally into that, because he'd probably been waiting around for me or even given up on me, you know. So I was just so taken by how good our songs were. Just very happy with them. Very proud of the songs we'd done on this record. And it became a, you know, right, we're going to finally finish this and get this out properly. And that's what we did. We finished writing, we finished recording, we finished everything. It got mixed and mastered. And I contacted High Roller, who I've had a long history with Warlord and various management capacity catalog stuff I've licensed to them from bands I've looked after. Stefan at High Roller said, I'd love to put it out. It sounds great. And here we are. The third Dragonsclaw album is finally finished and here. And yes, I'm pleased with it. So it's a long story, but I tried to condense that. But
Well,
it's a long story. So.
on a side note, your clients have kept me busy over the last couple of years. I've interviewed all of them.
That's great. I know, and I'll see your email coming up in the press, list and the interview lists, and I'm so happy we actually get to talk and do this.
So the new Dragonsclaw album is Moving Target. It comes out August 22nd through High Roller Records.
Yes.
Obviously, with you and Ben in separate parts of the world, this was recorded remotely, correct?
It was. It was, and we work so well together as writers. We haven't even spoken by phone in like or Zoom or anything in like over a decade. We send like two emails and we know what's going on. It's like we're so in sync as writers. I will just hum a melody into the phone, a vocal melody, and he'll put a guitar part to that, or he'll send me a guitar part and I'll write something to that. It really is quite remarkable. A lot of every other band that I am a part of or record for, there's, needs to be Zooms and constant phone calls and no, I meant that. No, you mean that part? No, over that part. The bit at the end that goes around twice. Yeah, halve it, like those types of things that anyone in a band writing long distance can relate to. But Ben, it's like minimal communication, but maximum result. It's really cool. We're so in sync as writers. So yeah, it's long distance, but it's been almost like long distance with just, emails and stuff like that and ping-ponging ideas back like that. And it's really turned out well. I mean, we have been working on it a long time, as I said. So again, I can't say enough how happy I am that it's now come to fruition and people can hear it.
Well, you have a single out from the album ahead of its release. It's called Don't Break the Silence Again. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that song?
That song is musically quite melodic in that Dokken kind of vein, um, which is something we did sort of step into a bit with this album, a little less on the, double kick power metal stuff, and this is a lot more melodic. I quite often use like Virgin Steel, Age of Consent and Fifth Angel, Time Will Tell, mixed with if Judas Priest had done an album between Defenders of the Faith and Turbo, if they'd put out an album out in '85 that sort of straddled the line, but without the synths, this would be that record. And that was my like vision, like not saying I'm Judas Priest or whatever, but that was kind of like, okay, if you have a goal for a direction, that's the goal to, and this is a very melodic song. So musically, it's kind of in that Dokken kind of realm. And also lyrically, it's just about somebody who didn't turn out to be the person that I thought they were. And I think most people can relate to those sorts of relationships. And that's one of mine. So yeah, I think that song turned out well. So we thought, let's take a bit of a risk and make the first single one of the more I mean, once upon a time it would have been called commercial, I guess, type of tunes. And there we have it. The next one's going to be a much tougher, harder song. So, but we
Which
started off with this one.
which one is going to be the follow-up?
Oh, do the record company want me to tell you?
Oh,
It,
come on now.
it could be about a werewolf. The song might be about a werewolf,
I got you.
possibly. But there's a clue.
I got
Yeah.
you. So your influences do bleed through with the Judas Priest, obviously, and the Dokken. Another one that bleeds through is Riot, particularly the song Shadow Fire, which you even brought in current Riot vocalist Todd Michael Hall.
He recorded that ages ago, and he would keep every time I see Todd, he'd say, "What's happening with that record and that song I did with you? Are you ever going to put that out?" Did that ever come out? And I'm saying, not yet, not yet. Finally here it is. So yeah, there's a duet with me and Todd on a song called Shadow Fire on that, which is a very Riot-esque song. So it sort of made sense for us both to sing on that. I've done a lot of work with Riot, and they're good friends, the guys over the years. So it was nice to have Todd on that song. That was really cool.
Now you brought in your fellow bandmates in Warlord, Mark Zonder on drums and Jimmy Waldo on keys. I'm
Yep.
guessing some former members of Dragonsclaw were no longer available.
Yeah, I mean, Dragonsclaw is the core of the band. Is me and Ben, and Ben's brother Aaron is the bass player. The core songwriters, that's myself and Ben. We did need a drummer, and we wanted to put, keyboards on this record, so they were easy calls to make. Oh, Mark, you want to play drums on the Dragonsclaw album? Sure. And Jimmy, you want to play keyboards on the Dragonsclaw album? Sure. It's nice to have friends like that, I guess. So, just like Kenny Earl Rhino from formerly of Man of War, and currently we did a record, JACK STARR record. I just asked him to put some background vocals down as well, and he was happy to do so. So yeah, there's a few guests in the sort of extended family in my musical world on the record, and that's a cool thing. Joe Stump does a guest solo on a song called Raise Your Fist. And Joe's the guitar player of Alcatrazz. So there's a little link to all these other things that I'm involved in as well.
Yeah, my head would spin if I recited everything that you were in and how everybody was all connected. I was going to do that with Joe Stump, and I'm like, forget it.
Yeah, I know, it's like a family tree. It would be like and it's crazy enough the fact that I sing for Alcatrazz, and I used to manage Graham Bonnet. Then I managed Alcatrazz with Graham Bonnet. Then we replaced Graham with Doogie, and I was still the manager. And then I would be doing the sound checks as a singer. So when Doogie decided, and we're all good friends, he just said, "Look, I want to go back to doing solo stuff. I need to do my solo shows." And Alcatraz is getting busier and busier. And even he was saying, "Well, why don't you just sing?" And I thought, well, what's that gonna look like? The manager singing. But then I thought, well, hang on, I was a singer first and foremost. So let's give that a go. And that's, we've done 2 US tours and some European stuff, and we're about to go out again. And we're starting to work on a new Alcatraz record soon too. Plus some older tunes that we've recut that we're going to be putting out as digital singles as well. So that's kept me busy. But yeah, the Joe Stump thing and the Warlord, it's all one big, you know, collective of musicians. It's like the Motown where they had like similar guys on everyone's record, or like the urban, rap, urban music where like they all guest on each other's records because it's all one big kind of crew. And so that's kind of cool. It kind of links stuff together in its own little world, which is cool.
I'm just going to call you the New Zealand Jeff Scott Soto.
Oh, okay. I mean, I mean, that's a compliment because he's an incredible singer. But if you mean for the simple fact that he's in way more bands than I ever would be. I mean,
You're,
what's he like 300, 400, 500 records he's done? It's crazy. I love Talisman, by the way.
you got him beat this year, though.
I'm sorry?
I said you have him beat this year for most releases.
Yeah, I almost thought it was a little much because we had a Warlord album out last year, but the JACK STARR came out this year. We did another Warlord like compilation with some new songs that came out this year. And then the Dragonsclaw. Is there anything else I've done? Oh, and we've got the Alcatraz
You
singles
got
coming out.
Alcatraz.
So it
You
is,
put out a
yeah. I
single.
mean, yeah, the Alcatraz single, and we've got another single on the way. So yeah, Alcatraz stuff, not a full album, but just Alcatraz singles, the Dragon's Claw record, the Jack Star record, and a Warlord release that had some new songs and some archival live stuff. I did sit here thinking that's a lot of stuff to put out in 1 year. But then I thought, you know what? They're separate bands, they're separate entities. Um, the thing about this is you sometimes record things years ago, and it takes a couple of years for them to be scheduled and to come out. And for so what looks like a very busy year was actually a lot of stuff that had been recorded last year, or even earlier, and it just winds up getting scheduled like a movie. It gets made 2 years ago, and then it gets scheduled for release, later. Um, I don't want too much more out this year because I don't want to drive everyone crazy. But next year there should be at least a couple of there'll be an Alcatraz record next year, for sure. And there's another project I'm working on called Ilium, which is an Australian band. Great songs, great stuff. I'm currently recording that actually this week and next week, and I've got to finish it the week after. That record will be out next year too. That's going to be really cool.
Would there be any opportunities for Dragon's Claw to perform live at some point?
Yeah, I really hope so. I really want to do that. Obviously touring with Warlord and Alcatrazz is almost second nature at this point, and we've always got something happening and something cooking, something brewing. But I would love to do some shows somewhere in the world with Dragon's Claw. That would be really, really cool. I definitely want to see that happen within the hopefully next year. That would be really cool.
Did you tour with Dragon's Claw on the first two albums at all?
Yeah, we'd actually supported Steve Grimmett in Australia because he came to Australia and we were on that package, and I think it was 3 shows, and then we did a number of gigs actually, and then we did another couple of gigs. We haven't done a whole lot of shows, about half a dozen gigs altogether. But they were on the back of the first record before I came over here to Germany.
Okay. Now I know you've been playing live performances with Warlord over this past summer. Obviously, you mentioned the archival material that's come out, the live material, the re-recordings of the material. Is there any more material coming from Warlord anytime soon?
Um, I never wanted Bill's music and Warlord's music to ever get to that point where you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, where you're like, and it works for a band like, Whitesnake or Jethro Tull, and they'll put out these enormous box sets with like demo scratch vocal take 7 and demo guitar, demo with guitar solo number 4, without guitar solo number 8. And there's 500 versions of every song. And I love those. I love the Jethro Tull ones. I love the Whitesnake ones. But Warlord archival stuff was always going to be, if it's top shelf quality, it doesn't matter if it's the 15th version of Child of the Damned. If it's top shelf archival quality, I mean, the last thing we released was called The Lost Archangel, which was the 4 free singles we gave away last summer as free downloads. People were asking for them in physical form. And we didn't just want to put out only that. We thought, well, if someone's going to spend money on a physical product, let's give them something else. So we recut Enemy Mind. We actually partially re-recorded 2 songs from the Holy Empire album, which were recorded with me on vocals that weren't used at the time, but that were still very good, that we put out now. And then we added some archival live stuff that had never come out from Greece in 2013 that wasn't on the live album from back then. And then a few live tracks 3 live tracks from the last summer. So we put together that package, and that came out recently, and that's called The Lost Archangel. That's all quality stuff. The previous archival release was called From the Ashes to the Archives, which was most of the Rising Out of the Ashes album re-recorded with the current band and featuring Bill's guitar as well, from some re-recording sessions that were started when he was alive. And we finished that up and put that out. Those are probably the last archival things that will come out. We do have a live show from 2013 from Germany that we have cleaned up and we have made. It's very, very good. I think it's possibly better than the live album we put out from Athens in 2013. It just, I don't know, it just has more punch, you know. I just sonically, I'm talking about the Athens gigs were my favorite gigs, but as far as the live recording, the German one was my favorite recording. We may do something with that in the future, but we just don't want to keep bombing people with like, you know, too much archive stuff all at once. I mean, there was a pretty extensive reissue campaign in the last decade via High Roller, which was all the studio albums. So these archival things are kind of wrapping it up, you know, because there isn't really any more stuff there. You know, and again, I don't want to get into, you know, half finished bits and pieces and put them out in that form, you know, because Bill, his legacy deserves more than that.
Absolutely. Your appearance on the latest Jack Starr album, Out of the Darkness Part 2, is getting quite high praise. I'm going to guess that your collaboration together is going to continue beyond this.
I'd like it to. I mean, he's obviously got his other band, Burning Star. This was a Jack Starr solo album, Out of the Darkness Part 2, a sequel to his first Out of the Darkness. Jack's a great writer. I enjoy working with him in that regard, as a, you know, singing his songs, and we did a great record. I'd love to do another one. It just depends on. I'd love to do live shows with Jack. It just depends on the you know, everyone's scheduling, whatever, you know. I've got time for it. If he wants to do another record, I'm totally up for it. This one's only just come out, so we'll probably be a minute before we do another one. But yeah, I'd love to. If next year Jack wanted to do another record, I'd be there. Absolutely. That's yeah, and I'm quite happy with the. It's been very nice to read that people liked what we did. I'm very grateful for those, you know, the reviews I've read and the people that have written me saying that they liked it. It means a lot because I had a lot of fun doing it.
Are you working on, or do you even have the time to work on any other projects besides the one you mentioned earlier?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all kind of, that's all I'm working on right now. As far as the future goes, Alcatrazz, we really are getting stuck into the next studio record. That's the next thing, the next Alcatrazz studio record. And if Jack wanted to do another record, cool. But the Alcatrazz is definitely the focus right now. So that's kind of what I've got right in front of me. And who knows, and the Ilium record. So, but who knows what else, you know, if someone comes and says, "Hey, you want to do some stuff?" I'll, you know, I don't run away from collaborations. I really enjoy it.
Have you been offered gigs with any other established bands that you had to turn down for one reason or another?
Nothing in the last couple of years, but going back, there has been a couple of bands that did approach me. I'd rather not say who, just because they may not want it known that they were having issues with their singer at the time, and
Fair enough.
Things that eventually figured themselves out, you know. But yes, there have been offers, and a couple of them were very exciting, pretty much life-changing, actually. But normal service resumed, and they kept the singer they had, and that's how it should have been. So, you know, that's totally understandable and fine. But, you know, bands quite often have moments, especially if you're in a band, you know this, where they go, "We've got to get someone else. We can't put up with this." They have little internal arguments, and then they start reaching out to other players and singers, and Would you like to do a couple of demos? Something might be changing. Okay. And then, then 6 weeks go by. It's all right. We've worked it out with our singer. We're good, So, you know, as I think it was, who was it? Was it Don Henley of the Eagles? No, it was Timothy Schmidt of the Eagles. He said every band is always on the verge of breaking up at all times because there's always so many different personalities, and as a manager, I know that it takes a lot to keep a band together. It's like a marriage with more than one wife. It's always everyone's there for a different reason, and they might all be good reasons, but they are individual to the person. Some people are there because they have to make a living and they enjoy playing music, and that's how they want to make their living. Other people have a day job and they play music because it's, they can't make a living from it, but they want to do it anyway. Some people are just there for the chicks. It's just everyone's got different reasons, and usually bands are a collective of personalities and people at different stages of their lives as well. So that's why lineup changes happen. And when people are very, very close, and that like touring is very, very, you're really in close quarters with people, and if you're not all getting along, little things can become big things very, very quickly. And then they can simmer down again, or they can explode. That just depends on the band and the individuals.
Well, Giles, those are all the questions I have for you today. The new Dragonsclaw album is Moving Target. It comes out on August 22nd through High Roller Records. Great album. I wish you the best of luck with it, and I want to thank you for taking the time to tell me more about it today.
Thank you so much, man. You have a good one, George.